and have helped me throughout my life. They're always, if I was faced with a problem, and Orville Faubus gave me some advice I practice to this day. I went to him and said, Governor, I'm thinking about leaving the Secret Service. I need your advice. He said, no, you don't need advice. Why would you ask my advice? He said, I can't possibly know what would be good for you. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to your college professor. Don't listen to your parents. They can't possibly know what is best for you. You go home, and let me tell you what I do. He said, I go back to Huntsville. I go sit on a log out in the woods, and I pray, and I ask God for the guidance that I know He gave me in my creation. And I ask that He give me the guidance now, the decision what to do. And He said, that's how I make my decisions. I came back to Mother and Daddy were living up on, what's that street? Is that Fordyce? Sat out in the backyard in a pecan tree, and I prayed and asked for guidance to make the right decision. And I left the Secret Service. I don't know if that was the right decision, but it seemed to me. but anytime I'm faced with anything, I pray about it and ask for guidance. And I make a decision. Are they right? I don't know. But that's the way I do it.
And do you have any regrets in your life?
Well, the only regret I have is that I didn't charge the Rolling Stones more money.
And do you have any advice that you would have given your younger self?
Oh, well, that would be to learn patience. I never figured that out.
And how do you want people to remember you?
Well, just as Henry and Faye's kid from Rector. I don't have any great accomplishments. I'm just proud that I'm from Rector, and I grew up here with loving parents who taught me so much, and that's how I want to be remembered as a kid belonging to Henry and Faye.
Well, I think it's a good time now for questions. Do we want to do that? And
I'm ready.
We'll
get the microphone.
Yeah, I'll take a question about it. I'll try to answer any question that you have.
Okay. I was corresponding with a friend of mine, an author named Joe Nikotowski. We were mentioning some of your work with the Rolling Stones, and I know that you didn't want to upset your mother again, but I think you were quoted in National Magazine in a way that she might not have appreciated a great deal.
Well, Joey Pruitt's the villain on that. He was a kid here, and he subscribed to Rolling Stone. He's a musician, and he subscribed to Rolling Stone magazine. And I'd had a confrontation with the San Antonio police, and it was not well. Anyway, the Rolling Stone story quoted me as saying some things that I denied having said, but Joey saw it, and he didn't even know me, but he knew I was from Rector, so he ran to my mother with this Rolling Stone story, and I caught the dickens of my mother traced me down on the Stone tour, and I said, "You can't believe what the press says, Mother." I would have never said anything like that, but I had some serious confrontations with the police over the Rolling Stones. I can tell you that for sure. So, yeah.
My dad said they called you Little Bill in high school.
Well, you know what? When I graduated from high school, I was 5'7" and weighed 135 pounds. And everybody said, "Gosh, what caused you to grow?" I said, "Well, Mother and Daddy couldn't afford meat, so we only had cornbread and white beans and potatoes. And when I got in the Air Force, I discovered steaks, and I kind of grew while I was in the military. When I got out, I was 6 foot and weighed 197 pounds, and I weigh 193 now. So but I don't look the same."
Ron and H.D. was just thinking, do you see the irony that you grew up on Fordyce Street?
That you grew up on Fordyce Street, Fordyce, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
It led to something later, didn't it?
Actually, Mother and Daddy moved there later, but when I was here, when I graduated in high school, I lived on Dodge Street. And anyway, I want to say one thing. I was out here, we passed coming here today, the farms out south of town. And I said, gosh, I remember that July day, chopping cotton. It was 100 degrees, and you got $3 for 10 hours chopping cotton, and you had to follow a leader. And if you didn't stay up with him, you got fired. And shopping with me that day was Jack Parrish. And Jack's here. Stand up, Jack. And Jack said, I'm sick of this. He threw his hoe down and said, I'm hitchhiking to Detroit and becoming a police officer. He did that. He left that day. And I stayed in touch with him. I visited him in Detroit where he's a police officer. He's retired from that and lives in Piggott now, and a dear friend. I love Jack Parrish. I wish I'd have thrown that hoe down that day.
I did have one quick question about the Oswald, and I may have asked you this before, but do you have any theories as to why the Dallas police allowed Jack Ruby to get into that situation? Was it just something that would have happened then that wouldn't happen now? But that was the one thing I never really understood about that.
Well, times were different then, and the police departments were not as secure as they are today, because they weren't as threatened as they are today. But I want you to think about this, and this is recorded in history. Oswald was being moved to the county jail from the city jail that morning, and the press had announced at 11 o'clock we'll be moving Oswald over to the county jail. So the press had swarmed there and whoever. But Ruby had heard from one of his strippers. He ran a burlesque club, and he had heard from a stripper that she needed money. So he said, well, I'll wire you $25. Now Jack put his dog in his car and went to the Western Union office and wired her the $25. Now he's thinking Oswald's being moved at 11. As they started to take him out, the Secret Service and the FBI said, we need to interview him again. So they pulled him off and took him to an office, and they interviewed him for like another hour or longer. Now the time has changed. Well, when Jack is coming back from the Western Union office, he sees the commotion at the police department, and he just pulls her out of curiosity, stops, goes in. Now, he carried a gun all the time, but I got to tell you, everybody in Texas carried a gun. I think they still do. So I interviewed Jack twice, and I think it was just an irresistible impulse where he saw the guy who killed his hero, and he whipped a gun out and shot him. I think that's all it ever was. And I mean, when I talked to Jack, he was a very emotional person. He'd get revved up, and he'd be sitting, and by the time he's finished speaking, he's up with his hands waving, and I could see that personality in him, and I just knowing him and what he said. He also didn't want Jackie to have to go through a trial in Dallas, and I think all those things entered into the fact that, and just the irresistible impulse, bam, I'm going to kill that so-and-so. But I don't think the Dallas police, they could have been more secure with it, but I also blame the Secret Service and the FBI. He was a prisoner of the city, but they should have been more involved in the security of him. And I wrote a critique of that with the Secret Service. Those policies have changed. That wouldn't happen today. But again, you got to think about the times then. It was just a different time.
You spend a lot of time in the music industry. You're in the Arkansas Entertainers Hall of Fame. What advice would you give to a group of young men who were thinking about making music a career?
Well, Joanna will find this amusing because she wanted to come to Nashville and get in the music business, and I begged her not to do it. It's really a tough way to go. It's so hard. We used to say years ago, 1 out of 50 will succeed at all, and I'm not sure if it's not higher than
Well,
that.
I mean, I would say to them, because I am in the music business, I would say that if they enjoy what they do and love what they do, they'll be successful. So, you know. It's
And to be themselves. Don't try to change their style or personality to succeed, because what really works is being real, who you are.
Yeah.
Don't try to contrive an image and be somebody else. And I think the ones who out there today, Luke Bryan is one of Joanna's artists, and we talk about Luke all the time, and he's Luke Bryan. And you know, I would probably say maybe you want to do something a little different. Well, that would be bad advice, because he succeeded being himself, and you try to be somebody else, it won't work. So, but go for it. I think it's a rewarding career if you make it. Look what, I mean, if you're happy doing it, that's the key. Just happiness. It's not money that causes success. I used to quote Billy Burt Brackett. I grew up with Billy Burt all my life. He mowed yards. He was the happiest person I've ever met in my life. I used to tell colleges, here's the definition of happiness. Billy Burt Brackett in Rector, Arkansas. And he never cared, and he was never intimidated. If I came back here, or a doctor friend of ours came back here, that success never bothered him. He was equal, and he was happy. So happiness is the key, not financial success. So anyway, enough philosophy. Yeah, way back. I'm disappointed I'm not getting more questions.
I really have two questions. The first one, you know, it was Jackie Onassis, I forgot his name, that her guard, Jackie Kennedy's guard, that actually ran and jumped on the car. He's written a book, you know, when they were driving down the road, when the shots were heard, it was her bodyguard that ran and got on the back of the car and pushed her down when Kennedy got shot. Do you recall that?
The
the
question.
agent, Jackie's agent, when the president was
Oh, Clint Hill.
Right. and they
Yeah,
talked
Clint Hill's a
about-
friend. Yeah, I've known Clint
And
all of his
she
career.
just wanted to know was that he talked about what happened and he jumped on her and protected her.
Well, when the shots were fired, the Secret Service. Well, let me go back. The Secret Service should have been on the running boards of that car, but they were on it at the airport, and Kennedy ordered them off. We begged him not to do that. The bubble top was taken. It was raining drizzle at the airport. We had the bubble top on. He ordered it off. You couldn't disobey an order of the president. The Secret Service didn't have the legal authority to do that. So now they're not on the running board. Had they been on the running board, Clint would have been on one side, an agent been on the other side behind Kennedy. Oswald would have had to shot that agent off to get to the president.
But when there
It's sad that that agent wasn't on that running board, but the president ordered. Now, when the first shot was fired, Clint jumped off the running board and headed toward the car. The other agent didn't.
that was what I wanted to understand. Do you think it's just where why did the other agent kind of hear, like, is that just?
It just reflects his. It's not any. I knew the other guy was a dedicated agent. I'm kind of like Clint. If I'd have been on another running board, I would have jumped off. But he didn't. That doesn't mean he's a bad agent, actually, because I'm telling you, you're talking about a split second there. And then the driver, Bill Greer, the driver of the president's car, accelerated immediately, and Clint barely got on the car. So, and then Jackie, there's all kinds of speculation about Jackie's trying to get out of the car, trying to pull Clint in. Jackie was trying to get away with the president's brains were all over her and the car seat. And the shock of that, and that they finally released those photos, but the president was killed instantly. His entire brain were on the seat of the car.
That was what I was wondering. It was just, Clint just heard it and jumped. It was just that, so you explained that. So that's great. My other question was Russia forthcoming with you back then about the time Oswald spent in Russia? He had gone to Russia before marrying her, and were they forthcoming with any information when he lived over there to share with you back then?
So with Oswald and when he visited Russia with his wife, was that any kind of factor, and was there any information?
When he went to Russia, I'll fast forward a few years. I'll try to answer your question in a particular way. I got a call from a journalist in New York who said the head of the KGB was in town going to a G7 or meeting, whatever, in Toronto. And he wanted to meet with me. And I flew to New York and met this guy who was a contemporary of mine, my age. And he said, I was a KGB agent when Kennedy was killed. And we were devastated because we had hope of peace with the United States because of Kennedy and Khrushchev's relationship. So he said, I want to talk to you about Kennedy. And I said, well, what about Oswald? He said, we never trusted Oswald, and there's speculation they thought he was a CIA agent. So here's the KGB agent. He said, you know what? If y'all were going to send a CIA agent over to spy on us, it'd be somebody really smart like you. It wouldn't be a kook like Lee Harvey Oswald. We didn't trust him. We thought he was crazy. And we kind of watched him, but we never gave him any credibility. So that's what they thought of Oswald. And Marina was underprivileged in Russia. She was from a poor household, laboring class in communism, and Lee looked good to her till she got here, and just a sad situation.
So you learned that though years later, not during the Warren Commission, when this guy called you. That was.
When you found that information out about Russia, was that during the time of the Warren Commission, or was it after?
No, well, I found out some of it then, but no, mostly the opinion of this KGB agent came many years. That was in the 90s or something, and it took to get through that dinner took a lot of Russian vodka, I might add.
Is there any other questions?
Yeah.
How do you explain all the diversity and different career choices that you've made? How do they all fit together?
How do I explain it? Well, you know what, I just, throughout my life, an opportunity would come, and I don't know if I passed on some or not, but when Fred Smith called me, by the way, we're good friends, I talk to him frequently. My philosophy is to help people. I was a lawyer, and that gives you the opportunity to help people, and that's all I ever wanted to do. And I just tried my best, but I don't know that I've answered your question, but
You did. I remember you coming into Jim Miles' office when I was getting a haircut, and you were helping him.
yeah.
I love Jim.
You know, That's what we do as lawyers, right? I hope.
Well,
Anyway.
I can say that you've always been a really good judge of character, and that's really helped you with everything that you've done, and that you kind of know, you like to help people that are in need, but you also just recognize good, good judge of character. And
I used to say when I was a federal agent, well, you know what, they used to ask me, how do you pick out somebody out of a crowd? Well, you know what, when you're looking at 50,000 people, you can spot a potential assassin. They're all there excited to meet the president. They're all looking at him, and then there's that one guy that's standing there that's looking around, and you can spot him. But intuitively, I have been a good judge of character. I shake somebody's hand and get a pretty good idea whether I want to be friends with them or not. But another interesting thing in my life is, since this is over, so anytime you want to leave, go ahead and leave. But I represented Ruth Montgomery, who was the world leading authority on psychic phenomena. And she didn't teach me as much as she recognized some of my personal traits. And she talked about my past lives. I might add, when I was like 8 years old here in Rector, I felt like I'd lived before, that I've been reincarnated. I'm a strong believer in that, and I have a strong Christian faith, but I still believe I was reincarnated. So, it's a lot of, I've had so many interesting people in my life, and I've met so many that I don't even talk about. That's like Ruth. And I'd make a speech somewhere, and somebody would want to talk about the book. They never asked me about Ruth, but after it was over, they'd come up to me and whisper, tell me about the psychic stuff. But anyway, I've had great intuition, and that's protected me. I haven't gotten involved with bad people, and I think that's a blessing from God. Because there's always somebody lurking in the shadows that's willing to take advantage of you, so beware.
Yeah, and I want to say too, one of the things that you always say, the best advice you ever can give or have been given, is to not be afraid to ask the question, and because you never know what the answer is going to be. And I think that is like, some people may be afraid.
I've always hadn't been afraid to ask for anything. It might appear to be unreasonable or ridiculous, but I don't mind asking. And I tell kids at high schools or colleges, and actually Marlo and I went to speak to the women at Cracker Barrel, the women executives, and a lady called Marlo after the speech and said, Mr. Carter talked about don't be afraid to ask, and I've always been terrified to ask superiors for things. And I decided to try that. You know what? It really works. Thank him for me. And I'll give you an example. Billy Graham asked Bill Gaither to do a homecoming series on the music that influenced his ministry. So we went over to North Carolina and we did this show. He gave us the songs he wanted us to do. And we finished that and came back, and I said to the president of the Gaither Company, I just checked on the internet and I don't see a biography of Billy Graham. And we should see if we can do a biography of his life. And Barry said, are you crazy? He could get anybody in the world to do a biography on him. I mean, all he'd have to do is pick up the phone and call them, and they'd jump at the opportunity. And I said, but they haven't. So why don't we ask? He said, well, I'd feel foolish asking. I said, won't bother me. He said, okay, if I ask. And he said, well, you don't make a fool out of yourself, go ahead. I called Franklin Graham and I said, we'd like to do a documentary on Dr. Graham's life. And he said, well, I'll ask Dad about it. I don't know, but I'll ask Dad. And 2 weeks later he called me and said, well, I talked to Dad and he thinks it's a good idea. He'd like for the Gaither organization to do documentary, which we did, and still out there on PBS and very successful, about Mr. Graham. I spent 5 years doing that, by the way, traveling with him, and I said, I sure wished Mother could have seen that, because she'd have probably had a lot more respect for me doing that than having the Rolling Stones.
And when you went to, you were, and I mean, I know this sounds weird, but you were invited to Billy Graham's funeral, and you wore grandmother's ring on your pinky because you wanted her there with you.
Yes, that's true. And my wife Marlo's here. Marlo, stand up and because in many respects she's been so good to me, because when Bev Shea died, his funeral was by invitation only. And I got an invitation, and I said, oh, I don't want to go over there. And Marlo said, it doesn't matter what you want to do, you're going. And so I did go and sat next to Billy at Bev's funeral, and I love Bev. He was such a sweet human being. And then when Billy died, I got the invitation, and Marlo said, there's no doubt, no, what an honor you are, you have to go. And I'm proud that I did go. But and let me say something about Billy Graham. I used to laugh and say that when where's the minister? Is he in here? Oh. Well, I said, when I die and I get where I'm going, and I open a door and it's full of TV preachers, I'm going to close the door and open another. Well, Billy Graham is the real deal. He lived modestly. When I'd go to his home, I'd always feel guilty, because I live in a little better house than Billy did. When I first met him, he was driving an '88 Oldsmobile, and that was almost 2,000, I guess. I don't know. So he made his salary throughout his career from the Billy Graham Evangelical Association was the same salary the minister of the Baptist Church in Charlotte made. So whatever that minister got, that's what Billy got. And he never received any royalties from any books that he wrote. It all went to the ministry. I don't know, I've known some other TV ministers, and I can't say that about them. Billy devoted his life to Christ and Christianity, and he never tried to benefit from that. And that's what I respected most about him. He was just Billy Graham. And interesting, when I first went there, who did I meet? Wynn Lawson, who I was in the Secret Service with, who went on to retire from the Secret Service, who was Billy Graham's top security guy. And all his security people were ex-Secret Service things, so I knew them all and felt at home with him. But an interesting thing about him, he stated if they were doing a crusade, the staff stayed in one hotel, Billy stayed somewhere else, and no one knew where he was staying but the Secret Service. That information never got out, and he never had a meeting with a woman ever, even if he had a witness in the room, and unless the Secret Service agent was there and a woman of his association was present as well. He never would meet with anybody alone, so he could ever be accused of trying to bribe or do anything improper. And funny story, we were doing Pasadena, the Rose Bowl, and I had a film crew that were kind of ornery. You know, they smoked and they did things that might not be consistent with Billy's philosophy. So I always put film crew away from the association people. So I checked where they were staying, and I said, well, I wonder, Billy won't, I'll put my guys at the Ritz-Carlton, because Billy won't stay there. And we get there and we're having a meeting in the bar, and the first thing I see is a Secret Service agent walk by. And I said, "Oh my God, Billy's in this hotel." So, but he, I said, there's two people in my life that I've met had such magnetic personalities: John Kennedy and Billy Graham. You could put them in a dark room with no light, and you'd know they were there. You could feel their presence, and it's only two people I've ever met like that. And so anyway, yeah.
Bill, I don't have a question, but I want to tell you this. Not many people have had the life that you've had, but the ones that have had won't take the time that you and Marlo and your family have done and share your stories with others. And I want to tell you, you put Rector on the map. You really love Rector. You made a difference in Rector, the Delta, and the state of Arkansas. And we appreciate that. I had previously served on the Arkansas State Parks and Tourism Commission for about 24 years. And I asked Bill to come and speak to our at our governor's conference on tourism. There will be 500 or 600 people there from around the state, and a lot of people from around the country, the media, and they still talk about Bill Carter and his stories, and a lot of times they'll come up and say, one thing, if you ever say, how do you go from Rolling Stones to the Gators? But I want to tell you, we appreciate you and all that you've done. You made a big difference.
Well, you know what? Everywhere I've ever spoken in the United States, I kind of do the Johnny Cash thing. I'm Bill Carter, and I'm from Rector, Arkansas. And, you know, I spoke, Danny, to the George Washington University Law School, and I opened that way. And they began to question me about Rector. And a kid goes to George Washington Law School, they're rich. They drive rich cars, and there's little spoiled, I call them spoiled brats, but anyway, they wanted to know about Rector. They couldn't understand. They came from cities, and one of them, Marlos told me, was the son of a prince in somewhere. And, you know, they never heard of anything like Rector. They didn't know it existed. And I made a point of telling them how important Rector was in my development, and I think, I wish the culture hadn't changed so much, because when I grew up here, it was different. So many people in this town, Danny, I remember speaking to the chamber dinner one night, and I told all the people in Rector to help me, and it was a long list. And, you know, why did they do that? I mean, actually, I was kind of a mischievous, whereas Don Z. Martin's here, said every time we used to come over to your house, you'd say, "Oh, again, you're here again." So I was kind of a mischievous brat at one time. George Barker says, yeah. But, you know, the Rector, the guidance I got here is me. Now, some people might think that's bad, but I'm telling you, I am who I am because of Rector, Arkansas, and the people. Henry Alstead, I could just go on, all the people. And why would these leaders, and this is when I was out of high school and back after the Air Force and attended ASU. So many people stepped up then and guided my life, and I'm so grateful for that. And I love this community. Yes?
Well, you talked about how Rector has helped you. I want you to tell everybody here how you have helped Rector with the helping hands and getting it started, and how many people it's helped.
Well, I don't know that, but George and I got with Sherlin and started the Helping Hands Foundation to help disadvantaged kids in the school system here. And I've been asked about that, or I've been asked, what's the most rewarding thing that you've ever done? And I said, it's starting that foundation and helping kids who needed help. And there's story after story after story. Where's Kay Huggins?
I think she's down the hall still being a great. She's that giving.
She worked with us for so long with that Helping Hands Foundation, helping kids. And there's so many great stories about kids in need and how the foundation came in and helped them. And by the way, when Keith came to Nashville to talk to me about his book, his manager asked me, "What have you been doing?" And I just mentioned, "Well, I'm not doing much, but my friend Barker and I started this foundation." Well, a few days later, when he got back to New York, I got a call from the Rolling Stones office, and they said, "Will you be at home a certain date? You're going to get a package that you'll have to sign for." Now, what's this? So anyway, the package comes, and it's a guitar signed by Keith with a photo of him signing it with a letter of authentication that he wanted to donate to the foundation to help these kids. That's Keith Richards. Jagger didn't send anything. And so we got $100,000 for that guitar, and I think that is Barbara. I think back about I could tell the stories of kids that we've helped, and I won't because it'd take too long. But there's so many young kids that needed help, and the band. George was in the band when he was here in Rector High School, and wanted to help the band, and we've helped finance that band and make it an award-winning band in the state of Arkansas. And we're so proud of that. So many things that we've helped in. I'm honored to have had the opportunity to help. And anytime I can do anything for her, Joey called me about this and said, "I want you to come up and do this for the museum." And by the way, I want to say, when you leave here today, I hope that you'll leave a donation for the museum. It's really important to the community. I've been to museums around the state in different towns, and it's so important to preserve the history of the community and some of the great things that have been done here. And I love going through it. Joey's done a great job. That whole staff over there, see some of them here who've done such an incredible job. So anyway, I'm happy to have done
Joanna has a question.
that. Okay.
We appreciate you too, the museum committee does. And also, when you talk about Rector, you have made us famous, but we've also had 2 generals and an admiral from this little town.
That's right.
We have 1 general here.
Yeah.
And I think it's unusual for a little town like Rector.
My friend George Barker, Major General of the Army.
We call him George.
I'll tell you another interesting thing about Rector. We grew up here together, and we were so bored we hung out together all the time, and we bonded. Donzie Martin and Gloria Rust are here, longtime childhood friends with George, and we get together once a year, and we have all of our lives. And you hear during that generation, you bonded and became friends and stayed friends, and we're still friends, and we see each other all the time. I'm happy that they're here to get together, see them again.
Hey, Bill, I had to say something here. When you were talking about the Rolling Stones article I showed your mother, and you said that I didn't know who you were. Actually, I did know who you were. You didn't know who I was. and where all my friends had these sports idols, you probably don't know this, but you were my idol. And I collected all that stuff. Now, I'm not sure very many people get to be personal friends and spend nights with their idol. I just want to thank you for that.
It works. Okay. Everybody's been asking or commending Mr. Carter about his career and asking many curiosities. But I actually have a question for Joanna. Which my question is, this guy who's had many lives, many careers, many notable things throughout his history. What was it like for you and just growing up with Bill Carter as your dad?
Well, my sister, who's also here, you know, we just grew up. He was very disciplinary with us. Which is a good thing. He taught us to be very independent. You know, I answered the phone one time and it was, you know, Mick Jagger, and you know, I didn't think anything about it. I mean, I'm like little. We used to go on tour and be like little kids on tour and thought it was cool. And actually, to be honest, being around all that kind of got me wanting to be in the music business and being, you know, which he hated, but just, you know, he was our father and he taught us really great things. We're very, I speak for Julia if she could get up, which she would say the same thing, that we're very proud of what he taught us and very proud of his accomplishments and going through his career chronologically and seeing all the way his life unfolded, and it's just been, you know, we've just been in awe of that. But I mean, he's just our dad. I mean, I have my favorite memories of our dad are different, you know. I mean, they're not about the accolades. They're different stories, but I mean, they're just like, there's special things that are like a little girl would think, you know, when he would go on trips and he brought back these life-size Snoopies for me and Joya from being out of town. And, you know, we got to meet Wilbur Mills, who's the famous person in the thread of his life, you know, and things like that. Just, but we have other favorite memories that were more fond to us. So, I mean, it would take me too long to say. So hopefully that helps.
And my legacy is sitting right here. I'll be remembered for these girls, not for anything else. I can't imagine anybody will remember me for the Rolling Stones, but I've got two lovely daughters I'm especially proud of, and that's the way I want to be remembered. Anything else? I mean, I don't want to keep you all.
I think that's it. There's still some books available on your way out. Contributions to the museum are accepted. And thank you so much for being here. Have a good night.
But that was a loaded question I asked you.